Hello, everybody. This is your old pal Joe with Owens 63. I am a certified Scrum Master, product owner, and Safe Six practitioner. I also have a very strong background in technology and solutions architecture. I hold several certifications in Microsoft, specifically in Azure. Today, we're going to be talking about streamlining the Agile development process using ChatGPT. I've created a Scrum Artifact Wizard, the tool designed to assist Agile teams in creating detailed and consistent epics, features, and user stories. It integrates seamlessly with the Scrum process and ensures that all artifacts will meet business requirements and align with strategic goals. And the best part of it, of course, is that it's free. I believe all you need is a ChatGPT account. So, common challenges that I've seen in Agile development is quality and consistency of artifacts. It's very time consuming, very error prone when you do manual documentation. There's always a difficulty in aligning user stories and features with business goals and personas. How does the Scrum Artifact Wizard address these issues? First, by making sure that the artifacts are consistent. It also makes sure that all of the artifacts aligned when written, that we keep in mind specific personas or the persons that will be using the features that we're working on and our business objectives. And it also reduces time and effort required for documentation. How does it work? It walks you through the format one by one, asking for details. In the story creation, the big difference is that it's going to ask you what persona this story has been created for. That's a list of people that would typically be in mind when writing the story, their role, what they do, what they want to do, and how they want to do it. The use case is during any of the planning sessions when you're in a conference room, you're projecting it on a wall, and you're using this to guide you through the creation process for each of the different types of artifacts. You can always ask it for suggestions. It can come back and provide definitions if there's not a clear understanding on what is trying to be done. Just a quick disclaimer, I've created a fictional company that we'll be using as part of the demonstration. It is in no way reflective of any particular company. I just created it based on my expertise over the years. It just so happens I've done a lot of work in the financial industry. There is a specific program that we will be addressing through this demo called the Knee Next Mobile. It aims to transition the knee bank's existing mobile application, make it world-class, industry leading. It's an ambitious project. It will focus on delivering cutting-edge features, having a user-friendly interface, provide the highest level of security. We're trying to keep the customers that we have and attract new customers using this mobile service. So for this, I have provided the GPT with a certain amount of knowledge. And the knowledge tells the GPT what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. A good use of this is for the formats of the artifacts we'll be creating. The bank as a standard format, and this will ensure that we're following that. I created a profile so the GPT has an understanding about what the company is. I provided a summary of Next Mobile and what our goals are. And I also created a persona text. And this persona lists in detail each type of person that will be using these stories and what their description is, their level of technology is, what their job role is, and et cetera.
Let's start by saying create an epic. It wants to get a title. I'm going to give it a temporary title right now. Great. It confirms that it has a name. And now it's asking us for a description or scope of the epic. We went around the room and got some feedback. And here's the points of that. Update the system and platforms to current vendor supported level. Update to the latest security standards. It needs to pass audits. It needs to be compliant with HIPAA and PCI. It needs to be compliant with US banking regulations. We need to improve disaster recovery, high availability, and get it ready for DevOps. And there you can see that it's provided us with a description. This epic focuses on updating need banks, system, and platforms to meet the latest vendor supported versions, ensure compliance with the current security standards, and achieve audit readiness. The update will align systems with HIPAA, PCI, and US banking regulations. Additionally, the Epic will enhance disaster recovery capabilities, ensure high availability, and establish DevOps-ready environment for efficient and scalability operations. So now it's going to ask us for the business outcomes for the Epic. They wanted to make sure that we highlighted security as part of the description. So we're going to do that. And you can see here that it's added that hacking the most secure configurations, maximum protection, and regulatory compliance. The room agrees that is acceptable description. Next, we're going to do business outcome. There's some conversation in the room, a little bit of a different alignment on what business outcomes mean. Let's get everybody on the same page. So you can see here it's provided the definition and some examples. Just for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to ask you to suggest if you need to have a starting off point, if you need to have something that sparks conversation or just creativity, ask it for some suggestion. You'll notice what's on the screen now actually reflects back on what we put in the Epic. It is suggesting real business outcomes based on that Epic. For the sake of the demo, I'm just going to say use these. Here it's going to repeat the business outcomes again, just to make sure that everybody understands this is what we've agreed to this point. Now it's asking us to provide leading indicators. What are those? It lists what they are, and it gives us some examples. It's going to come back and show us what we had agreed to. And now it's going to do NFR. I'm just going to ask it to suggest some. And I'm going to accept what it has there. It's going to give us the review and it missed the business values. So it's always very apologetic when it misses something. And here it's gone straight into an Epic summary again. And it didn't ask us exactly what we wanted for business values. So let's tell it we need to add that it needs to follow this instruction for business value. Then we have it back on the track. I don't know what to say, suggest. So this is a good point to bring up that even though you have done countless hours of iteration with the prompt and provided it with all of the knowledge, sometimes it can just go in a direction that is unplanned for. You have to have a good understanding of what it is that it should be providing you. And if it doesn't provide it, you need to correct it. So it's giving us a summary on this. I don't want to see a summary. I want to see the entire Epic. Much better information. At this point, our recommendation would be to go over all of these bullet points and outcomes with the room. Ask people to think about anything that we may have missed, anything we need to add to it. Now, it's asking us if we want to do an export, and we do, but we're going to hold off for just a minute. You can see here that it has an availability number of 99.99%. Now, the numbers that are generated in here should be triggering conversation. How do we achieve 99.9? Can we achieve 99.9? What would it cost? Who is going to support it? Can our data center actually do this? A lot of questions. There should be a lot of conversation about that. In this instance, we've decided that we can do 3 nines, but not 4. There's other numbers that I see here. What that will do, will spark more conversation, make people think, can we do this? Is it even a good idea? Those are the kind of things that we should. So here, it's asking us which format we would like to use to do this. I'm just going to hit number 1, which is the plain text. I've sped this up because it can sometimes take a while. Let's down. It may be necessary to set the expectations that depending on what's happening on the back end of OpenAI, this could take a while. Here's the file, and you can see that it is updated the title. That's all there is to it. We now have an Epic created, and we're ready to move on to our next step, which is creating a feature.
Now that we've finished with the Epic, we're going to create a feature. It's asking us if we would like to do that, and I'm going to say yes. We discussed around the room, we came up with some ideas, the features that we think we need. The first thing is going to be getting the on-premise hardware and software up to date and to a supportable level. I'm going to call this feature update on-prem resources to support, since this is going to contain operating systems, networking, and switches, and just everything that has to do with the application and the infrastructure. We've gone around the room. taking some feedback about what we think belongs in this feature, and you're seeing it on the screen right now. Update the networking equipment, update server hardware, update operating systems, Windows and Linux. Highly available, disaster recovery. We want a security first design. We want to improve the performance, and we want to update what we can and replace when needed. And here comes back our description. The feature focuses on upgrading need banks on-premise resources to ensure all hardware, software, and networking components are updated to supported levels. This includes updating network equipment, server hardware, and operating systems, both Windows and Linux. The feature aims to ensure high availability and disaster recovery capabilities following a security first design approach. Additional upgrades will focus on improving overall performance by updating where possible and replacing components when necessary to meet modern standards. That seems to cover it pretty well. So let's go on and talk about our acceptance criteria. Just like before, let's make sure everybody in the room understands what an acceptance criteria is. Acceptance criteria is specific conditions and requirements that must be met for a feature to be considered complete. I'm not going to go through all this. You can also see that it's given us some examples to take a look at. I'm going to say that I want some numbers associated. So I've asked here to add some metrics to the acceptance criteria, and let's see what it comes back. I'd like to add the metrics to these suggestions. There's 90 days, 90% must be replaced or updated. 100% of the systems running on updated operating systems within 60 days. 99.9% uptime. So we grabbed that from our Epic, didn't it? To our 2 hours of RTO, 15%. Well, the reason I like these numbers in here, I like these metrics in here, is that it should start sparking conversations and creativity, and the room should be discussing not only are these the correct metrics for this acceptance criteria, are there other things that need to be added to the acceptance criteria or changes that we need to make that have new metrics. And as always, when discussing metrics, we got to keep in mind personnel, budget, timeframes, legal requirements, just a whole range of everything that we need to consider when doing a project this large. We should have a lot of conversation. I'm going to accept these just for the sake of the demo. I would like to use these. Yes. And there you go. It's going to give us a summary of everything that we've done so far. Now that we've started applying metrics, there's been conversation in the room that the description of the feature should be updated to reflect those metrics. But let's go in and ask it to do that. We're going to scroll back up and take a look at what our current description is. And I put in a prompt, please update the feature description to include the metrics in the acceptance criteria as needed. Now, those kind of look like the acceptance criteria, like that. I want it to be part of a paragraph. Let's ask it to do that. Because we don't like that format, I'm going to ask it to please take the changes that it made in the feature descriptions and make it into a paragraph instead of a list. And there you see it's creating a new one and it's adding all of that in there. We got a 99%, we got an 100, we got 60 days available. Looks pretty good. But then the Scrum Master comes in and says, hey, you know what? Feature description really shouldn't have anything that concrete. It's supposed to be very high level and give us an idea of what it is we want to do. And then, of course, as we continue to go fill it out, then we can get more specific. Or we decided as a group, remove those. I'm going to ask it to go back to the original feature and remove the metrics. Let's see how it does here. There we go. We're right back where we were. Now it's asking us if we want to move on to the business values. And we're going to say yes. Then we're going to ask it first to show us the form. As I mentioned during the epic, I think that it's important to go back and look at the formats and make sure that everybody is on the same page. You can also go back anytime and ask what a definition is. Let's make sure that everybody understands not just only the format, but exactly what we should be providing. The business value refers to the benefits or advantages that an organization or user will gain from implementation of the particular feature, epic, or user story. It explains why the feature is important and how it aligns with the organization's. I'm going to say yes. I want to see some suggestions. Those are good suggestions, but I do want to just go back and double check, make sure that it is referencing the acceptance criteria and the feature descriptions when suggesting these business values. To see what she comes back with. And the GP says, yes, sure, I've been doing that. And I've been using both the feature description and the acceptance criteria, list some examples, and wants to know if we want to go to business values. I'm going to ask it one more question about metrics. I'm just going to ask it if it's a good idea if we include metrics as part of the business values. The group really wants to drive home that we're looking to do specific things and have really good, solid goals. And so they would like to make sure that the metrics are included in this as we go forward. So let's ask it if it's a good idea. And it's saying, yeah, it should. And it is. And the group has decided, yes, we want to add them. There we have our 3 nines again, 15% throughput, and averaging at 10% customer satisfaction. This should be a conversation right here. Putting a number to customer satisfaction. Is there somebody in the room who has anything to do with customer surveys? If they're not, this is a good time to call them in or just take a note and say it's something you want to check later. We can always go back and change this metric. And the conversation should be driven to what would it take for us to do this? It's one thing to say, I want a 10% increase, but we need to make sure that there's a plan in place to do that. How we do that is important, especially from a budgetary standpoint. Before we agree to any metric like this, we have to have a thorough conversation and make sure that it's thought all the way through. Here's another good thing. I'm glad it's done this. It does this every now and again. So you noticed right here on the other side of this emoji, there is a white dot. That white dot says that it's still trying to figure something out, that it's still processing. I entered yes and hit the enter key, and you can see that circle here has a little square on it, which means that it's still processing and it can't accept. I don't know why it does this. So what I normally end up doing is just hitting the cancel button here. It'll show what I typed in, my requests or my commands, but it won't act on it. So then I just had to hit yes again. And then you can see that the little circle here has an arrow in it. And we click that and it'll pick up right where I left off. I have tried to wait it out to see if it maybe it's just processing on the back and eventually will catch up. Sometimes it doesn't. I've actually left it overnight before and come back in and checked in the morning and it still has the white dot and the circle square. So you can see here, it's updated the business values. It has all the numbers that we had agreed on. And now we're going to go to risks and dependencies. So I'll tell it to add the risks and dependencies. Now, because of the way that I phrase that, add dependencies and risks, it's just adding them. It's not even thinking that it's an example. Making sure you're choosing your phrasing very carefully. Probably should have said, yes, let's have some examples. And for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to set what's there. You see here, it's done it again. Circle square, nice little white dot. So if you have a better idea as to how to handle this, I'm all ears. Please leave comments below. I would really like to be able to understand this better. I haven't had a lot of chance to research it, but because I know what to do, I'm just going to say accept again and hit the up arrow. And now we've done everything. This is the complete feature, everything that we've said to this point. I do think it's a good idea that when the first day of planning is done, you send out the texts of these artifacts that we've been working on so people can look them over, read them over, see if there's anything else that triggers, that makes them think of something different or something that we missed or something that needs to be phrased better. And now it's going to ask us if we want to export. I'm going to say that I want a Word document. I'm going to fast forward through the analyzing. Now it has completed the export. And let's download the feature. There we go. That's our feature. You notice it's even provided some formatting. I'm not saying that this is ready to show to the C-suite, but it certainly does get you there a lot faster. This concludes this part of the Scrum Artifact Wizard on how to create a feature. Next, we'll be taking a look at user stories. At this point in the ceremony, we've brought in the dev team because we're going to be taking this feature and breaking it into user stories. So we're going to be a little bit more technically involved. Pulled up the definition first so that we could make sure that everybody in the room understood. And it's asking me if I'd like to define it. Say yes. It's listing all the user personas that are in scope for this project. This point, I would expect there to be conversation around the room as to which persona would actually apply to. Certainly, you could consider it something that the IT support specialist would like or the system administrator. But I'm going to say personal banking customer because I want us to approach this from the perspective of the customer. What action will the banking customer be taking? They would be using the mobile banking application. So when they're using the mobile banking application, what is the outcome? The outcome would be is they want to have uninterrupted services during a disaster situation. And there we go. It's written the story for us. The title Disaster Recovery. As a personal banking customer, I want to use the knee mobile banking application so that I can have uninterrupted services during a disaster situation. And we might be able to phrase that a little bit better, but it gets us started. So for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to ask it to suggest, and I also wanted to make sure that it includes metrics. All right, so there's a system failover, data redundancy, real-time monitoring, emergency communications. These all look really great. Service uptime. And here's a number, and it's still pulling the number from the service uptime. And there again is our 39. So it's still using the data that we provided it earlier. And here's our completed story. Title is Disaster Recovery. As a personal banking customer, I want to use the knee mobile banking application so that I can have uninterrupted services during a disaster situation. And we've got numbers in our requirements. System failover within 30 seconds of a failure, redundancy 0% data loss during failover, real-time monitoring, auto generates alerts in 5 seconds, communications 60 seconds, and the minimum downtime is 5 minutes. Looking back on my architect days, these are some really ambitious numbers, and it's going to cost us a fair amount of money to do. And I would expect the room to have a lot of conversation about if this is achievable. And that's the goal. Generate conversation, trigger people to challenge findings, change them accordingly. All right. So it's asking us if we want to do an export. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to ask it to export everything as a PowerPoint. And I'm going to ask it to include everything we've done to this point, the epic, the feature, and the user. Here we go. Analyzing. It's got a lot to do here. All right, there it said it's completed. Let's download it and take a look at it. Here it is. I'm not saying this is perfect, but it's getting you close. It's giving you a start. Let's see if it can do better with the Word document. There we have it. This looks a little bit better. Certainly be easily converted into a PowerPoint. When we were creating these artifacts, it relied heavily on the knowledge that I had given it. You can go back, look at the beginning, right? Lay all that out. This is a security risk. Anything you provide it could be used to help train OpenAI's models further. I highly recommend that you keep this in consideration. This particular GPT I wrote specifically for a bank, the imaginary company that I created. It was tailored specifically for this demonstration. I also have a generic version, and I will have a link for that below, but you're free to use. It's no charge. I think you just have to have a ChatGPT account. I want to thank you all for watching the video, and I encourage you to reach out and connect with me. Again, my name is Joe Owens. There's my email. Look me up on LinkedIn. Happy to talk with you and discuss anything that you need in relation to this or really any of the other things that I'm involved in. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope to see you soon.